and welcome to Some Like It Real. I'm Bryan, and I'm very, very excited to be speaking with the director of Arco, Ugo Bienvenu. Ugo, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Fine, fine. And you, thank you for receiving me.
I'm very excited to be chatting with you about your film Arco. This is a really, really special film. I've had the pleasure of watching it twice, one of which was at the Toronto Film Festival back in September. And it was such a glorious experience with that audience on the big screen. I simply hadn't seen anything like it. So, firstly, I want to ask how this project came to be and what made you choose to tackle this as your feature debut. A majority of debuts that I've seen don't take the swings that this does. And this left me in absolute awe. So, talk to me about the early development stages of Arco.
First of all, thank you. In fact, I had done a comic book in France. I'm a comic book writer and an animation director for small formats since more than 15 years now. And I had done a comic book called System Preference, which is now out now in US. And it was really a big hit in France, and a lot of companies wanted me to adapt this book as a movie. And I was like, no, I want to do something that's made for cinema. But that gave me the idea that it was possible for me to do a movie at that point. And I asked myself, okay, if you're honest with yourself, which are the movies that made you what you are now as a filmmaker, as a human being? And in fact, the movies I that made me, that impacted my system, were the movies that I saw when I was a child. So Jumanji, Casper, Pinocchio, or all these movies, and Peter Pan. And I was like, okay. And also these movies, I watched them 100 times or 1,000 times, and I know my like the now that I'm a father, I show them, so I watch them again with my children, and I thought, okay, this is important because it impacts deeply the systems of people, in their lives and the way they see life also. And as you know, making animation is long. It can be like 6 7 years. Us, it took us 5. And I was like, okay, it's worth it passing 5 years if people would watch this movie more than twice, which is often not the case for adult movies, so I was okay, let's go. And uh, and also, I'm a science fiction writer myself, and it appeared to me in the 2020, early 2020, that we were living in a really bad science fiction movie at the time, and that things weren't gonna go better, and also that maybe science fiction writers, in a way, were responsible of what we were going through, and are responsible of what we go through right now. So I said, okay, maybe it's our responsibility now to imagine a better things if we want them to happen, because everything we think about ends up in the world, as human beings. So if we want the best to happen, we have to imagine it first. This was the kind of the main thing. And also, the world was arch at that time, and I couldn't see how it would get better in a few years, in a few years later. So I was like, I needed tenderness at that moment. I needed softness, and I said, okay, let's do that. This will be the project to bring tenderness, light, and to do kind of a hug to the audience, so they can go back to their life, trusting on the people they love, on their emotions, on their feelings, on sharing things with people they love, and yeah, and imagination also. And that became the project. And one day I was drawing like without thinking, and the head popped out of the sky, and Arco was there, and it began.
It's so funny that you bring up of how when this movie came to be and everything, we were in a very scary place, and the world is still in a very scary place now, all these years later.
Even
And
worse.
even worse, I completely agree. But what I really loved about this movie, having now watched it twice, it did feel like one gigantic hug. It felt like a reminder that even though things seem so bleak, as long as you have that comfort system by your side, everything will be okay, even if it seems like it won't be. And I really loved how that was explored in this film, especially from the lens of a child, because I've seen so many films that have children as the lead, both animation and live action. And this was so deep and so moving. And it's honestly one of those films to where I wish that I had a film like this when I was a child. And it's one of those films to where many years down the road, when I hopefully become a father, I could show it to my children. So were you kind of going in making this film with that headspace. And I know that you're now a parent yourself. So did the development process change a little bit? Were you already a parent when you started creating this film, or was it in the middle or after this film was done when you became a parent? And do you look at it differently now because you're a parent?
No, I when I began, I wanted to have kids, but I didn't. As you know, it can take time, and so my daughter arrived 1 year after I began working on it, and my son arrived 6 months before finishing it. So it was a big production thing, and but what I knew from the beginning is that when I was a kid, nobody respected the adult that was in me, and when now that I'm an adult, nobody hears or respects the child that is in me, my inner child. So I was like, okay, let's do a movie for these four people, and try to say, in fact, what makes us humans. This is fiction is all about this. What makes us humans is our emotions, our relationships to reality, our sharing things with people we love, and we all are made of that. And I think in a world that's getting arch tent, in a lot of with a lot of tension, we also have to remind us that we are all made of the same things, and that we should rely on this rather than rely on what we makes us different, and that's why also I wanted to put everybody, every generation in the same room, and not thinking about, oh, we're gonna make this movie for 8 years old or 20, just try. And what like moved me to tears, it was going to the French cinemas or in the festivals and see grandfather, grandmother laughing or crying at the same time with their grandchildren, and because and even like people that are not from the same religion, people not from the same races, just being together and being humans, on kind of things that are not stupid, but simple things, but we all have them in common, and let's, yeah. And also I think the world relies too much now on numbers, and numbers divides us a lot, but numbers are results of small calculations, and but numbers are super small, whether ideas are wider, deeper, and I think we should pass more time to dream and trust our unconscious than calculating.
I'll tell you this right now, as someone who's almost 30, I dream every single day. The child in me has never left my mind and will never, ever leave my body. And this movie was a reminder of that. And I really love how universal this movie is because, again, you brought up of how your intention wasn't to make a film that was catered towards one specific demographic. It was catered towards everybody of all ages, all genders, all races. And I love that so much as someone who goes to the cinema multiple times a week, as someone who loves all forms of film, live action, animation, all different genres and everything. So I think it's really beautiful that you brought this film to life and you got to tell the story that you wanted to tell. And one thing that I really want to get your perspective on is that one of the things that really moved me about this film was how often parents have to be in two places at once. Both of the main kids in this film are left alone because the adults are working. It's so painfully realistic, something that I feel we don't commonly see in animated films, especially nowadays. It made me think of my favorite films, particularly coming of age films, which Arco can certainly fall into that category. Was that someone that was in your mind from the start when developing this film?
Yeah, because in fact, through Iris and her parents, I wanted to say we're getting in a world of indifference, a world in which we don't share the same spaces. And what is being human all about is it's about being present, in fact, and you can't replace transmission with just a Zoom session. It's not
Yeah.
working. And because in transmission there's a lot of things. There's hormones, like hormones, like there are tons of things. It's not just conceptual. It's and the movie speaks a lot about that. In fact, through the simplicity of the story, I try to underlayer it with a lot of things, subjects about. And one of the main subject of the movies is about presence of things being replaced by their image, which is one of the biggest danger of our generation, and concepts replacing things, actual things. So yeah, there is that. There is our relationship to technology. There is our relationship to imagination. There is and yeah, it's we. I try to speak about all the topics that we are. How do you say that? Facing right now.
It's very timely, which is really wild because this movie takes place so far into the future. Then obviously Arco is from even further in the future. So it's scary how something like this could be so, you know, it could tie into what's going on with how we view technology currently to this
Mm.
day and everything, and how we may abuse technology and how we may use it for things that don't make anything better. So I really loved the way that that was explored in this, and it reminded me again so much of my favorite films and coming of age films. It made me think of Spielberg films and films from like the 80s and 90s that deal with familial issues and everything. So another thing that I really would love to get your perspective on is the animation itself. So this film is primarily 2D animated, and many mainstream animated films nowadays have moved away from 2D, which is particularly devastating me as someone who grew up idolizing 2D animation. Do you have a particular connection to the technique, or does it depend on the story that's being told?
Both, but mainly the movies that are magical for me are movies that are made by hand, because in fact, humans, like the style of a person, of a drawer or a writer, is more related to what he's not good enough to achieve. So it's much more related to the quality of his errors than the quality of what he succeeds. In fact, humans, we don't succeed that much. So what we recognize more is errors. What we recognize in more is errors. So and in fact, when we draw, we make beautiful errors. And the quality of a draw is the quality of the. But when you do 3D movies, even if it's animated by humans, you work with the incapacities, you work with the errors of the machine, of what she can't render. So I always prefer working with human errors than machine errors. And I think this is why I related so much. This is why I to it so much. This is why I I feel it magic. It's because I recognize in it. I recognize the fragile things in it. And this is why I love this craft, and this is why I fight for this craft, because it's in danger, and I hope we'll be able to do 2D animation. When I was a student in school, in my school in Gobelin, they didn't want us to do 2D animation because they thought it was dead, and I told them. It's dead if we decide it's dead, but if I decide I want to see 2D animation, I have to actually in it was in 2010. This is when 2D got back a little bit, and then working and working, it got back and again. So yeah, and me, it's always the ideas that decide what they will become. If it's a comic book, or if they ideas come with their format, with their look, and me. I'm a drawer myself since more than 15 years. I draw like this. I wanted my style I wanted my movie to be in my style. And yeah, it was logical. I didn't think about it. It was like this.
That makes my heart so happy that you're such an advocate for 2D animation, hand-drawn animation. That really warms my heart. That makes me so happy. Another question that I would love to get your insight on is the world building in this film. There's so much of it that establishes what our relationship to nature and, as you brought up, technology might look like in the future. With Iris's world, houses are protected from climate disaster and household chores are taken care of, but parents are also outsourcing a lot of their parenting duties to robots. This might harken back a little bit to what you brought up earlier, but do you think that technology has the potential to adversely and positively affect our relationship to the natural world and each other, or do you think it's going to impact it in a very negative way?
When I'm a director, as a director, I don't like directors that give their point of view, in a movie. We're directors, we're telling stories, we're not in a bar talking with friends. And often in movies now, I feel like the director feels like in a bar and gives his opinion. In my movie, I tried to do I try to do it complex, not to say this is good, this is bad. Mickey is embodying AI, obviously, but so Mickey is allowing the parents of Iris to work in the city but at the same time giving the best to their child, living in the good neighborhood surrounded by nature. But at the same time, this cuts off the possibility of transmission of deeper transmission. So it's good and it's bad at the same time. But also Mickey is gonna be the one that will save the kids. So it's not good, it's not bad. But at the same time, he how is he saving the kids? It's imitating nature. It's because he is imitating. So I always try to show the coin in every side and not to say this is good, this is bad, but it's up to you. It's up to the audience to decide and to ask questions. I just put things in context and I just put things together so you can ask questions and say, do I want to live in this future? And this is my point. But if you want my point of view, I think AI is the shittiest thing ever because, what in Italian in Latin, imbecile means dumb, and dumb means the one that doesn't use a stick. So it's the first technique, the first technology, and technique since the very beginning of humanity was there to for us to grab time to imagine to think about the world and to think about how to act to dream the world and in the early 2000s technique became a technology, and this shift is really dangerous, has prepared us to AI because technology said, okay, you have free time. I'm going to take it with outside inputs. Like your phone is going to ring every 2 minutes and you'll be robots. What is a robot? A robot is something that works with just outside inputs, and humans it's inside inputs. And now most of the time we're driven by outside inputs just like robots, and we don't have the time to develop inside inputs because we're beginning getting bored, and we're like we're having an idea. It's sparkling, but and right at this time our phone rings and the idea is gone, and or the desire is gone. Everything is gone, and 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 I think this is really dangerous because what makes us human is our possibility to dream the world, to imagine the world, and if we don't have that anymore, I think we better suicide ourselves right away.
I I agree completely.
And also imagination is in every corner of our life. When we cook we imagine, when we pee we imagine, when we have sex we imagine, and if we don't imagine, our life is so poor. The imagination makes our life way better, and we have to, and let's not. And it's a muscle. Imagination is a muscle. We have to train it all day. And if we give that to AI and we GPS our lives, like okay, you tell me where I have to go. You never imagine where you go yourself. You never imagine how to find your way yourself. And but it comes from all the details in your life, and you have to and yeah, I think it's really dangerous what we're going through.
So dangerous. And even saying dangerous feels like an understatement to
Yeah.
kind of lighten the mood and everything. I love how funny this movie was. I think the inclusion of the trio of Dougie, Stewie, and Frankie was so delightful. And it was a nice breather during the more intense sequences in the film. And I thought it balanced everything very nicely. You were able to find that beautiful balance of heart, honesty, and humor. And I just love that trio so much. I felt like it would have been remiss of me to not bring that up to you. When I knew that I had the opportunity to speak to you, I'm like, I have to praise this trio because when I walked out of
It
the
blocked,
screen,
sorry.
when I walked out of the screen at TIFF, everybody loved the trio of Stewie, Dougie, and Frankie. Everyone just loved that trio. So I wanted to kind of get your insight of what came up with the idea for that trio. Were you inspired by like any cameo trio or maybe people in your life? Like what drew you to putting those characters together and everything?
I'm so happy you talk about them because at the very beginning of the work, people like nobody liked them, and everybody wanted me to. So I did the whole script without them, just to show them the movie was better with them. And after 3 months of rewriting, they were like, "Oh no, it's not a good movie." And I gave them the first script, and they reread it, and they said, "This is way better." And I was like, "It's the first one." So so in fact, sometimes you have to do that. But yeah, I love them because when the movie gets harsh, when the movie is too serious, sometimes they bring adventure. They bring, and also, how do you say ovnis, UFO, UFO? Like I love these guys that say they say, "Oh, I saw aliens," and I always love these guys because they are stuck in imagination. They they believe in something we don't believe in, and they look crazy, but they may be true, in a way. And what I loved with them is that they are stuck in childhood, so they move. It's in the movie, adults move like child, these adults move like children, and the children move like adults, and it was fun also, showing two ways of moving and two ways of animating. And yeah, no, they were so funny, and they were allowing me to make the sometimes the movie lighter. And yeah, it was and animating them was so funny. All the animators were like that. Were the characters they loved animating, and you can feel it too.
100%. And before we wrap up, it would be remiss of me to not mention the very exciting news that you're now an Academy Award nominee. Congratulations on that. That's so exciting. It's only been a little over 36 hours, so I'm sure you're still processing the news and everything. So I would kind of love for you to paint me a picture of what that morning was like. It must have been very overwhelming with all the phone calls and emails, what have you. How does that feel for you?
In fact, I was in France for just a few hours, and I bought a house in Paris, and it's under construction now. So I had to go there to see the construction guys, to tell them you put electricity there. And I just had a few hours to do this, and it was at the moment of the announce. And I was talking to the construction guy, and I was receiving all the way like pictures of rainbows, because in Paris there were rainbows all the way, like
It was a
really
sign. It was a
tons
sign.
of rainbows. And so I was like, my phone was ringing, rainbows, 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 and beep, like, "Oh, you're nominated." So I was with my wife, so it was really, really, it was, yeah, a sign, and really magical, and the beginning of brand new things, I think.
Well, you have plenty of exciting things coming your way. Ugo, it's been an absolute treat getting to chat with you today. Arco is currently playing the theaters in New York and LA and will be expanded January 30th. So if it's playing near you, be sure to go see it on the big screen. It's a beautiful film from top to bottom. You won't want to miss it. Congratulations again, Ugo, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with me. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Ryan.
Take care.
Thank you.